Hey, 25 Met 4. I'm responding to your second video called My New Questions for Non-Christians. As you can see, I found a I found a camera to borrow, so that's great. Your questions were very good and very thought-provoking. I want to thank you for how graciously you received our answers to your questions. I'll try to address as many of your points as I can from your second video. That's actually why I've broken my response into more than one video. Your questions take longer to answer than to ask. I do apologize for not responding sooner. My family has been enduring some of that suffering we're talking about, and so I had to take a substantial break. Life doesn't happen on YouTube, although I am very grateful to be able to share ideas with you. That's one of the joys in my life, is sharing ideas. This video is a personal response to your video, though I'm also making it public to others. I invite believers and non-believers to respond to me, preferably by video, so we can continue a respectful discourse. I agree with you that comments are sometimes a little less civil and productive. At first, when I listened to your video, I thought you were going through some kind of suffering that you didn't want to explain. You asked, "Why did I have to go through that?"
Why did I have to go through that? Why did I have to go through that?
I'm really sorry if you're suffering, and I want to reach out to you with some kind of solace. There's not much I can do on this side of the screen, but hopefully sharing ideas is some kind of solace to you. In contrast, the last few times I watched your video, it almost seems you meant that remaking your video is a kind of suffering. Do you mean it's an inconvenience or an embarrassment to have to restate your question? Or do you really mean you were suffering by having to remake that video? If so, you might want to redefine suffering, because life is going to hand you a lot of those kind of interpersonal interactions, and I mean, if you find it suffering just to have to restate a question, that's going to be rough. The reason you're having to restate your initial question is that we had a miscommunication. You asked in a previous video what the reason for suffering is, and we gave you the causes. That's how we interpreted your question, is what came before to cause the suffering. You accepted the causes, and you even accept how pain can help us survive, but you seem to want more. You're asking for more. And it seems like what you're asking about is a supernatural purpose for all events in life, possibly intended and designed by a divine being. Regarding purpose, for this video I'll use what's usually the second definition of purpose. It's the goal or intention. For example, my purpose making this video, my intention is to exchange ideas. Or the purpose humans give for using a flower pot is to grow flowers. They have the intention of growing flowers in it. Humans assign purpose to events and objects. We assign purpose to events usually after they've transpired. We come up with what we think is a logical explanation for the future purpose of a past event. It's the same way we assign value to an event. We assess it when we're outside of the event, so we can see a slightly broader picture and be a teensy bit more objective. It's sort of like, it reminds me of this game you play, Good Thing, Bad Thing. You have a group of people and they're sitting and you tell a story. Each person gets one part of the story, but they have to kind of contradict each other. For example, a man was on a plane, and the next person says that was a good thing because he liked to travel. And the next person says, but that was a bad thing because when the plane was landing, the landing gear stuck and the plane started to crash. And the next person says, that was actually a good thing because the man had his own parachute. The next person says, but that was actually a bad thing because he packed his parachute improperly, and etc., etc. It goes on and on around that. And what it shows is that everyone has a different opinion of the value of an event, and the value judgment changes as we get new information. So we have no absolute value of any event, and there's no absolute purpose. Humans assign purpose not just to events, but also to what we consider objects. So, for example, some medieval thinkers suggested that lobsters have hard shells so that humans can exercise their muscles cracking the shells open. Or some people have suggested that fruit like bananas have rubbery outer skin so that people can hold them better. But what's inherent in this is the way humans assign purpose is intricately tied to our perspective. A farmer thinks the purpose of rain is to help crops grow. A softball coach sees rain as an inconvenience because she has to reschedule practice. So likewise, humans see mosquitoes as the bane of our existence, but if we could ask bats, they'd probably see mosquitoes as a delicious staple, not a problem at all. Are any of these interpretations better than others? No, they're just based on different perspectives. There's never one perspective about events and objects in our world. That suggests that there's never one purpose for an event. You said you've been questioning. Got windy all of a sudden. You said you've been questioning the purpose of suffering, questioning the purpose of life if there is no God. Asking questions is one of the most important activities a human can engage in, and I commend you for it. As I always told my fellow theists when I was a theist, your faith will only be stronger on the other side of doubt. You're not strengthening and deepening your faith or your understanding if you're avoiding thinking about difficult issues. So that always gave me courage to plunge ahead, because I believed that if all truth stems from the divine, then truth can't conflict with the divine. Well, I also question. In fact, I question your question and its underlying assumptions. You ask what the purpose for suffering is, but I ask, why assume there is a purpose? I can understand looking at how amazing the world is and thinking you couldn't have designed it, even with your advanced brain, so maybe a being with an exponentially more magnificent brain, or the equivalent of a brain, developed the universe. But even if that is so, why assume anything else about that being with that brain? Why assume you can know its characteristics, its likes and dislikes, whether it loves you or has a plan for you, or whether it can affect the world, or even whether it still exists? If you can't know even these things for sure, you certainly can't know whether there is a purpose for your experiences or what the purpose is. You're assuming there is a purpose, and you seem to be assuming it's designed by an omnipotent, omniscient being who also happens to be omnibenevolent, one who knows all, has power over all, and cares for you. If that is what's keeping you going, if that's what's keeping you going, there is no way I want to disabuse you of that opinion. I'm just pointing out that not everyone makes those same assumptions, and as may be obvious to you by now, many people can live perfectly normal, moral, even exuberant and abundant lives without making the assumptions you might be making about a creator God.